Thank you very much, and thank you for coming. My name is Morris Panner, and I run a company called TownFlier, which actually, as Kevin mentioned, is in the unified communications space. So we do a text-based group communication and messaging system. But today, what we're here to talk about is innovation. And in our country's history, what's very interesting has been that state and local government has often led innovation. The founders set it up in a way that it would be a test bed of innovation. I think what you're going to hear from our two case studies today is that that spirit is very much alive and well from different parts of our country. We have Richard Ferrick, who is the network administrator in Panama City, city of Panama City, Florida. And he's doing some very interesting things, which he will talk about. And we also have a speaker closer to home, Djamshidi, who is with the Chesapeake Innovation Center right here in Anne Arundel County in Maryland. Both of them provide very different outlooks of where we are in the process of adoption, some of the barriers. And what the format for today's presentation is, each of them is going to present for a few minutes, and then we will start an interactive discussion and take as many questions as we can. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Richard, and we'll hear about his experience in Florida.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Richard Ferrick, and I am the network administrator for the city of Panama City. Before I get started, I'd like to take a second and thank the event sponsors for asking me to come here today and present Panama City's case. A little bit of background about our city. We're a local city government, has approximately 38,000 residents, 500 city employees, 250 of which require IT support for their daily routine. Our IT department really consists of 3 employees, one who is a programmer who focuses mainly on .NET stuff, a department manager who focuses on AS400, and myself, who handles the network integration across the city, 16 outlying offices, 2 public marinas, and 2 after-school assistance programs. So we're not a huge city, but we do have a decent-sized network. As with any city, we're faced with looking into
Whatever you know. That's fine.
Faced with the cost of upgrading, we reached a point on our network that allowed us to, forced us to look into upgrading not only our mail servers, but we were running out of disk file space, things like that. We also had limited mobility for users, and we were looking for a solution that could answer all of that for us. Although the provisioning of the user accounts when we made the change to Google accounts was done manually, the actual transition from our Domino server into the cloud environment was really a seamless operation. I was the person that handled everything. I didn't have access to these APIs that are available now. Simply just transitioned the accounts with the user accounts and their email, and the whole process kind of went seamless. Hands-on training were provided to all the staff that required it. And when we made this transition, the decision was made to take people from their Lotus Notes environment and to get the best benefits out of Google Apps. We opted not to use an email client. Instead, everybody was given the web browser to use as their access to the cloud. That way they could reap all the benefits that was being offered by Google. And sorry, I can't get to the next slide. Today we leverage the cloud extensively and are able to innovate and provide more services and functionality without sacrificing controls that we need for the safety of our data. We understood early on that our data in the cloud is still ours and needs to be equally protected like our on-premise data. We use the cloud as our file server and need to make sure we foster collaboration, but don't leave room for human error and potential data breaches. In order to do that, cloud data protection at the City of Panama City has 3 elements. First is data governance. This helps to ensure that our employees are leveraging the cloud in accordance with defined policies. Next is data protection, making sure that the data is where it should be to prevent data loss or tampering. And data analytics, understanding user adaptation and collaboration helps us leverage our investment. The addition of the Google Apps Marketplace took their solution to an all-new level, in my opinion. Now we have the ability to seamlessly expand our offerings with third-party applications, which installs in seconds, provides immediate value, and only pay for what we truly need. This innovation allows us to build a truly best-of-breed solution at a fraction of the cost. One of the marketplace apps that we use is a service called CloudLock. What we needed was an enterprise-class data protection solution. One of the limitations that we had when we moved to the cloud was that as an administrator, I didn't have the ability to go out and see what users had stored in the cloud accounts without logging in as them, and that was not practical. By installing the CloudLock solution, I found that I had the ability to go in, look across, see who was storing what, and if there was any sharing violations going on or anything like that, inadvertently sharing outside of our domain or whatever the case may be. We can identify and quickly fix any data exposures. Our domain is continuously monitored, and we can migrate data between user accounts. Before, what we had to do is go in and log in as that user and download everything that they had stored in the cloud and then transfer it over to another user or another department. But with the CloudLock solution, we had the ability to do it on the fly with use of a simple wizard. Here's just a few solutions or a few examples of how Panama City is running government in the cloud. We take advantage of the free Ustream service and broadcast our meetings live to the public. All public meetings are broadcasted using the service. Plus, we also house all our public videos on a customized YouTube channel. Excuse me. This has been well received by our citizens. They have commented on the ability to access these type things, not having to go in and, if they can't make the meeting or whatever the case may be, just having the availability 24 hours a day has been a big asset to the city. Another thing we do is we have a default employee start page. And what happens with this, we take advantage of the iGoogle page, and any employees that log on, they get their core applications set up with, which are embedded into the page, and regardless if they're at work, home, wherever the case is, whenever they log in, they get access as if they're sitting at their desk. Panama City is probably one of the only government entities that is elected to run their public-facing website using Google Sites. Hosting, design, and maintenance has always fallen on my shoulders at the city, and by moving over to Sites with all the applications that they have made available to us, it's been easy for me to allow other departments with minimal HTML experience or web authoring experience to go in and upgrade the sites for their department. In doing so, that allows more information to get out to the public more quickly. Our planning and land use and engineering departments really take advantage of this with some of the changes that's been going on with the master plans at the city. There's updates, what seems like hourly, to their portions of the website, and this has been a valuable tool for them. Before, that process would take a while because it would have to be sent to individuals, myself or one other person, who would have to update it, and that was a timely process. One other thing that has been an asset to us in moving to the cloud is the ability to simplify public records requests. The state of Florida has a broad public records request procedure. The citizens have access to it at any given time. Anything that we do is public record, more or less. There are some exceptions to that, but by using cloud computing and Google Docs, we have the ability now, when we get a request to come in, instead of going all over the place in different departments to try and find it, the documents that are stored in the cloud, we can simply dump into a folder and share via email address with the requester if that's the way they choose to get it. Here last week, we had one from an attorney that was a pretty broad request, and it was satisfied within 2 hours by staff uploading to a shared folder and then sharing that folder out with that individual. That was, which he agreed was okay. Most people would request it on a CD or whatever the case is, but this was a very, very quick effort on our part, or I should say it took less effort, and those requesting were satisfied with the results. Another thing that we do in the cloud for employee purposes is we offer a customized training site. In the training site, anytime any new applications get rolled out, a quick 3 to 5 minute video is hosted in the page that gives step-by-step tutorials to the end users on how to use the product, be it if it's something Google releases or if it's an application from the marketplace. Human Resources also takes advantage of it along with police and fire to issue training videos and such throughout the city. And last, cloud computing's impact on the city. Moving our core messaging and collaboration to the cloud has extended new avenues of communication for us. Video conferencing, instant messaging, things like that have proven to be a big asset for the city. Those are tools we didn't have before moving to cloud computing. The apps on an administrative level are always being improved upon. So there's less IT resources involved on my end, which allows me to go and do other things. What's most important about all of this is that the citizens have the ability to stay more informed. Since we've moved over to cloud computing and some of the services that we've implemented, we've had a lot of positive input from the citizens who notice our intentions and the ability to have the information made readily available to them. And with that said, I will turn the presentation over.
Great. Richard, that was great. Thank you. Have a seat. Well, why don't we compare and contrast that a little bit and then open it up to questions with Sarah Djamshidi's presentation. Sarah, do you want to come up and talk a little bit about your experience nearby?
Sure. Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sarah Djamshidi, and I'm the Executive Director of Chesapeake Innovation Center, locally here in Anne Arundel County, Annapolis, Maryland. And so I wanted to begin to paint a picture first about the organization, and actually I think it's a good comparison and contrast because we are sitting at a forefront of making decisions as to what components of cloud are we going to leverage for our organization. And what I'm going to talk about is primarily from a business side of the decision as I run the organization. So that would probably help you looking at from a perspective of a small agency within a county or state and local government. I don't have to say what's going on in the country in terms of the budgets and also how it trickles down to the state and local levels. And then, of course, it trickles down to the county levels as well. So we're under extreme budget pressures to be cost effective and efficient with our resources. On the spirit of innovation, so let me tell you a little bit about Chesapeake Innovation Center and different components of it and where specifically we've been looking at cloud as a potential way forward for us. So Chesapeake Innovation Center, we started back in 2003. First, Homeland Security, National Security Business Accelerator in the country. Still on? I can be louder too. So the first unique program in the country focused on finding innovations and fostering innovations in the government sector. And so we've worked with more than 40 emerging technology companies today, some of which I'm happy to report have gone public, have been acquired along the way, and what have you. Among some of our unique programs, one of our programs is called the TechBridge Showcase and the TechBridge program, where we bring in companies, innovative companies from across the country, and we basically showcase their capabilities and do matchmaking, if you will, with some of the government agencies and some of the government contractors. Now, as you can imagine, that involves a lot of data. That involves a lot of information on the companies, a lot of different stakeholders plugging into the process at different levels, a lot of internal processes, and as well as sharing that information in a secure manner with those stakeholders so that the matchmaking can take place and the decisions can be made. As you can imagine, we're a small organization with limited resources, and we've been doing this in the past. Back when we started, there was really no solution that matched our requirements. It was a unique process, what we needed to do. And so what we had to do at the time is we actually had to develop solutions internally. So we invested a lot of resources to develop a unique solution for us. Now, now in 2011, that system is no longer catering to our needs. So we are at the forefront where we're thinking, well, where are we going to go with our processes? How are we going to automate those? How are we going to monitor those? How do we keep up with the security parameters that's going on? How do I, as the executive director of the organization, dealing with different stakeholders, both on the county side, other government agencies, as well as the companies who are sharing some of their confidential information with us, like financial materials, their core competencies, what they think is their competition, all of those kinds of information. How do I make sure that that is secure? So we looked at a lot of applications out there, and I was just talking earlier here with Morris, in that now there's a lot of tools out there in order to be able to automate processes, in order to manage users and different levels and what have you. But sitting from my position, what I found was that I couldn't find a solution that exactly matched to our processes. It allowed me to be able to slice and dice the data down to the user level, figuring out what people are doing with what document, when are they doing certain things, and have complete control over that, and be able to see what's going on, and also in a secure manner, and making it available to people across the country, because companies apply from across the country. Our stakeholders are in different places. How do we actually try to do that? So that was some of the unique frustrations. And by the way, prior to this, I was at the University of Maryland, where I was running a similar program, and there we spent about 2 years developing custom applications. And by the time you develop it, you have additional requirements and what have you. So it just seemed to be like a never-ending process of development of the application. So I share that with you as a background in terms of what was going through my head as I'm looking at different solutions. So, we've been able to identify CloudTrack and Calkin Information Systems with their solution called CloudTrack and the several modules that they have. And we've been piloting that solution. And what has been amazing, and I wanted to share with you, is a couple of aspects of it that I wasn't able to find, in some of the well-established solutions. And the alternative for us was for us to develop something custom off the shelf and, develop something and unique, and spend a lot of development hours and resources in order to do that. So what I liked about it was that, number one, it is actually user managed. It puts the controls in our hands, in our office, to be able to say who is doing what, who has what right, who is going to take a look at things. And really, the other component of it was the fact that I didn't have to bring yet another group of IT set of consultants to be able to help us put the system up, guide us through the process, and us educating them, and then they deploying the system, and it not matching, and us going back and forth. So what was really helpful is that it put the control in our hands, so that we can actually do that in a very easily way. My assistant was sitting there working with me, and she's not the most IT savvy person. And she was able to pick it up really quickly. And so that is I think one of the strong advantages of the CloudTrack, and one of the modules that it provides. The other thing was, as I mentioned, budgets are tight. And I look at every single dollar that we have to spend very carefully. And so by going to this solution, it allowed us to be able to start small, pilot it, see how it works, and then be able to scale up. And that's been one of the huge benefits of it. So starting small and scaling, I think that was one of the key benefits that reduced the total cost of ownership. Meanwhile, it still continued to deliver the value that we were looking for. So we weren't compromising on the value that we were looking for. So that was really helpful. The other component that I think Kevin talked about was security. And to be able to do all of this in a secure manner up in the cloud is also very important. As I mentioned, we ask companies for their financial information. These are all privately held companies. We ask for their core competencies. We ask for their competitive analysis, who they think their competition is. All of this information, we do not want it to get out. And they trust us with that information, and we take that very seriously. And so security was one of the huge components of this as well. Their system is being tested every day to make sure that they keep up with all the security breaches and that they protect the system. And so that was very important to us as well. And we look at that. So I think all in all, when we look at the solution, it provides a lot more ROI than just efficiency and employee productivity and all of that. And so because of those things, we're looking at very closely to, again, we're piloting it now, and we're going to deploy it slowly and then scale as we grow the organization, as we change our processes, and we know that it can grow with us and change with us. So those are some of the main points of where we are today. So,
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. That was really helpful and a good contrast point. So what I'll do now is I'd like to open it up for questions, and I can seed some questions, but if people have questions, just start raising your hand, and we'll have the mic go around, and I'll do a mix. I think we have a question right there. Oh, we'll get a mic to you in a sec.
Thanks. Richard, as a fellow Floridian, I'm kind of curious from the standpoint of you being motivated to do what you did, which I think it's phenomenal, especially with our sunshine laws. I think you being able to even put that stuff on YouTube is frontier behavior. I don't know across Florida how many other agencies are even following in your track. It would be great to go on a roadshow and promote best practices of what you're doing. So I'm curious, number one, whether people are listening to you or you even have bandwidth to leverage that. If you don't, I'd love to talk to you afterwards, because I want to get more and more people engaged in this across the Florida level to do it the right way. I'm curious for you, how much the hurricanes were a motivator for you to get rid of the infrastructure in-house and get out to the cloud, since I lived in a condemned condo for 3 months and I was 3 hours north of you and you got it.
Right.
So I was curious kind of if that was part of a lot of your interest in the cloud.
Yes, it was actually. It was one of those deciding points in discussion with management about the options of cloud computing. One thing that everybody took into consideration there was the logistics of City Hall. City Hall is actually built on a man-made marina, which is 300 feet from a seawall. And not only that, this building was designed before technology, so our whole data center is a glass wall with a nice view of the bay and all the ships. But come hurricane time, it's a nightmare. Not only with that, but the humidity levels there. We are constantly in a battle with the humidity levels within the building, especially since the building has that one glass wall. But that was one of the main deciding factors. We always have power issues there at the marina, so we were constantly getting brownouts and things like that. But that was one of the more deciding factors than anything with moving it off premise. Thank you.
I think we have another question. Well, we'll take that question, then we'll go over here, and I won't ignore this side of the room either.
Richard, thanks so much for sharing about that. Did Google, when you went to investigate them supporting you, how much consultation did you have from them, or did you provide it, or was there someone between you and them?
It was just me.
Just you?
Yes, and this all really started in 2007 when Google made their offering for cloud computing. I'm really lucky in a sense that management at the City of Panama City will allow us to explore without hardly any input on their side. We present it to them, and they look at it in its totality, and if they think it's doable, then we move forward with it. And that was the case. Keeping an eye in 2007 on cloud computing, what Google had to offer. Come 2008, we reached that point on our network, so that's when we decided to go ahead and try it out. The initial test was really going to be for a 1-year period. But when we started transitioning over, the buzz about jumping off of Lotus onto Google really caught on, and we were able to transition everybody over within 90 days.
Question right here in front. You might want to just raise your hand for 1 sec.
Thank you. So I'm curious, working with federal government agencies, I've been hearing an awful lot about data sovereignty versus data security. And data sovereignty, especially as it relates to sharing data across borders. And I'm curious on the state and local side if you're running into that, you know, when you're talking about company information or PII, you know, are there laws, are there regulations at the state and local side that require that you keep that data within a certain boundary? And are you running into those issues?
So Sarah, do you want to take a first crack at that, or?
Sure. So I don't know what your name is, but Linda, yes. So absolutely. We work with the National Security Agency. We work with some of the intelligence agencies. So we're cognizant of those issues as well. So, but that's why I said security is absolutely important for us, and also where the data goes and who has access to it and who's accessing from where, and where that information has been sent. And so being able to have a solution, in the past, it was very hard for us to track that. But with, like I said, with CloudTrack, that way we can figure out and see who's doing what, at what time and where, and that's important. So absolutely, that's been one of the components of it. For certain things, we're moving to the big cloud. For certain things, we're moving to a private cloud. So to address some of that. And what I find is, you know, because we're a small organization, but we do a lot of big things, and with a lot of people, then, you know, for certain things, like I said, we're moving to the big cloud. For certain things, we have to keep it closed still, but it would still be a private cloud. And I find more and more we're moving some of our systems to that just to leverage the scalability of it. So, you know, for example, for our communication, we already moved that to the cloud. The other components of it in terms of document management and what have you, so we're at that point now. Yeah, we have one of our stakeholders includes some of the government agencies and on the federal side. And so we do share that information with them, yes. Mm-hmm.
Ken.
Hi, Sarah, as a fellow resident of Anne Arundel County,
Oh, great.
what I'd like to you to explain a little bit is spend a second talking about the levels of government. I mean, you are an agency of Anne Arundel County, is that correct?
Yes.
So, but do you have to answer to? So what I'm interested in is really whether you have to answer to to state interests, and in your procurement, in the interaction. I mean, you're not you mentioned that some of the processes are going to go to a private cloud, some to a public cloud,
right.
and you indicate that you're a small agency.
Yeah.
So the question I'm sort of wondering is, you know, are these decisions being made by dozens of other small agencies? I mean, I know how small Anne Arundel County is. It's a county of only 500,000 people, and if there are several agencies like yours within the county and in other counties, how are they interacting with state IT departments? And then
you know, that's actually a very good question. So we work with the county CIO to help us navigate through some of those things. My organization is essentially an organization which is an offshoot of the Anne Arundel County government. So we're a wholly owned subsidiary of Anne Arundel Economic Development Corporation, which is a branch of the county. And so we look to the county CIO to help us navigate through some of those things. Of course, there will be a competitive process when we go and procure, you know, basically services. So we you know, cost efficient in that regard, and we'll look for.
But is there a similar office to yours in Howard County or Montgomery County?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. And on different levels, there is coordination that goes on, mostly on a CIO level. So I look to our county CIO for guidance in terms of some of the best practices and some of the procurement things. And then across the, you know, he's working with his peers across different counties, if you will. And then there's an overarching umbrella that comes down from the state CIO. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, great. Anybody else on follow-up? Yes.
So I have a question for Richard. Have you moved over the police department in Panama City to this and the fire? And
Yes.
what security considerations do you have to take into account for their email in terms of securing information about criminal activity data and things like that in the federal regs?
That's actually an interesting question. With Los Angeles being in the news with cloud computing and their situation, with us, what I found interesting while all that was taking place is that coming from a law enforcement background myself, actually, you know, a lot of municipalities in our area actually use AOL in some instances as their email accounts for their business. With us, when we made the transition, it was email. There was some reservations on law enforcement side of things because of the nature of their business, and some of them were kind of off the charts as to reasons why they couldn't do it, but it really didn't make sense. It sounded more to me like they wanted in-house control of it rather than a security thing. But as far as current investigations that are taking place and stuff like that, it's transmitted via email, but Google Docs portion of things, they're not storing anything at that level yet. I think we're kind of in a holding pattern on that to see where it's going to take us.
Yes.
For Sarah, what is the use cases that you are using CloudTrack for? I'm hearing communications.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hearing you're looking at data management.
Let me get up so I can see you.
Yeah, but what is, are you, I mean, you're in the nature of an economic development activity, so are you doing customer relationships? Are you I mean, what is the nature of your functionality?
We've moved our email communication and what have you to the cloud. That's another component of it. But for the, and just because I gave up managing our own servers and backups and everything else, for an organization our size, it just did not make sense to have all that infrastructure and all that money tied up, if you will, in hardware and software and support. So that's been great transition for us. On the CloudTrack side, what we're looking at to use it is we have, for the program that I mentioned, there's a lot of different stakeholders that come together. There's a lot of data by way of different types of documents that come together in terms of Excel sheets and Word documents and PDFs and different kinds of things that come in. We analyze those, and they come from all across the country. And then we have different stakeholders at different part of the process that need to have different level of access to this data to be able to approve the process for the whole matchmaking that we do between private companies and system integrators and government agencies. So there's a lot of people come into the mix with all different rights. Data is coming from all different angles, different types of data, and so be able to manage that and do the matchmaking in a secure way. So it's for document management, for business process automation, if you will, but also for being able to have visibility for me into the process to see where things are, who's doing what, who's taking how much time on what, to be able to control that and, if you will, force a process. So does that answer your question? I mean, there's a multiple, there are like 5 different modules. They all do different things in different components of the process. But like the Cloud Hub and CloudTrack, all of that allows me to be able to merge different kind of documents and take a look and see who's doing what, be able to assign something to members of my group to do different things and different stakeholders outside of the organization to be able to give them a particular task and monitor that. So that I find it very interesting and very helpful compared to where we are today. So thanks.
Great. Other questions from the audience? Here we go. You guys are a great audience. I had a whole list of questions prepared, and I haven't been able to get in a single one, so this is a great audience.
Hi, thank you. Both of you have mentioned cost savings. I was wondering if you can share some numbers or percentages of IT budgets that you've been actually able to quantifiably save. And secondly, on the Richard, on the Google apps, I couldn't help but notice the branding of Google, and I was wondering, in terms of using these cloud technologies, with Amazon, Salesforce, as a company or an organization that wants to use these, we don't necessarily want to brand, the tools that we're using or the other companies that are providing these services. So was that an option to take out the word Google for apps, or was it something inherently you have to live with under these cloud?
Right. No, it's not something that we live with. We have the ability through a administrative panel to go in and remove everything that makes reference to the Google logo and things like that. We can replace it with our own. And we've done that with logos on a few of the sites that we run. But as far as hard numbers on cost comparisons to what we had to do, you know, I had some ballpark figures as far as what it was going to cost for me to get up to a good level of operation with updated hardware and software, plus taking into consideration, you know, the addition of other servers that we're going to need for file servers, third-party applications that we were using for like content filtering, spam filtering. Once you look at the picture of consolidating all of those, along with some of those costs that's going to be not really considered, the management over backups, things like that, once they're eliminated, you know, the comparison in our eyes was pretty good. Hard numbers we don't have, but it was in a ballpark.
Sarah, did you want to follow up with anything?
Well, as I mentioned, with the particular implementation of CloudTrack, we're in the piloting side, but so with some of the other solutions that we've deployed to the cloud, it's been significant. In the order of, like, you know, a fourth of the cost or what have you. When you start, like to Richard said, when you start putting the hardware, software, and the people to be able to manage all of that cost together, it's been significant reduction. But we're looking at the ROI calculations right now as we are trying to make a decision to move to the CloudTrack, if you will.
Other questions? You know, I had a question. One of the things that I think people outside of government worry about is government agile enough to do these kinds of things? And if each of you in the time remaining could give a sense of what was the biggest obstacle you had to overcome within your own organizations and how you maneuvered through that. Richard, do you want to start?
Sure. Really, the biggest obstacle for me was getting the gumption to get the ball rolling on it. Mm-hmm. I understood what I wanted to do with it, and being a one-man show, I was handling this by myself. I was a little standoffish at first because I wasn't familiar with the process, what it was going to take to do it. But the simplicity behind me transferring everything over in Panama City's case was very simplistic. But not just in Panama City's case. Nonprofits also have the ability to take advantage of the Google offering. They can get the free service Google Apps for Education. I'm a member of one of the larger churches in Panama City, and they opted to take advantage of that, and they use an Exchange server. So we were able to get 100 plus of their staff members transition using the APIs that Google made available to us, and that went the same way as my transition did. There was no bumps, really. They had one issue. It was a power outage during the weekend while the process was taking place, but it took 2 days to pick up from that and move forward. So, you know, overall, it was a very simple process.
I think, Morris, for us, it's been the concept of, so is our data floating out, you know, who has access to it, security components of it, and the fact that I can't go to our network closet and point to a server where my stuff is on. And sort of the comfort level with that in terms of where the data really sits and who is actually touching it, who's, okay, you know, it's in the cloud. So I think what was actually helpful for us is, you know, trying to move some of our communication system and using different kind of SaaS systems and sort of slowly getting our way, improving the ROI along the way and the comfort level to then get to moving more and more of our operations into the whole SaaS system.
Great.
So that's been very helpful for us and some of the challenges we had to overcome.
Our time is up. We're moving into a break. But I think our panelists, who I would have to agree are real innovators, I'm really happy we had this chance to see how this innovation is taking place. I assume I haven't asked them, but would you mind staying behind? Absolutely. So if people have some extra questions, they can come on up. So I encourage you to come on up, talk to the panelists. And otherwise, are we adjourning to the main room? Rihanna's going to explain. And thank you all very much.